same.
Back on Hollywood Squares.
Or the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly enough, this is the extent of my socialization.
Oh, okay, so we're good to go. So why don't you bring in Matt and Jim? Excuse me. Matt in here? No, we'll wait for Matt. Are you with us, Matt?
He's mute.
Yeah, we're ready. If we can get Matt to unmute himself, then we can roll.
We are unmuted.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt.
All right.
right.
No, I appreciate your time tonight.
Well, I appreciate you doing this with us. So let me go through the formalities. I'm Norm Corbin. I'm the chair of the Northborough Historic District Commission. We'll have an open meeting this evening of the commission. It's being conducted remotely, which is consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on the YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Just keep in mind this meeting is both live streamed and recorded that can be viewed through the Northborough Remote Meetings link. All right, so we've got that out of the way. We'll take a look at the agenda. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding the partial demolition request for 56 Hudson Street. Because this is recorded and there will be people watching this in the future, I need to go through how this whole process works for the public hearing for a demolition. So bear with me, we'll all go through this. So right now, this evening, we're looking at a partial demolition of an old industrial building at 56 Howard Street. The way the practice works here is this building is listed as a historical asset within the town of Northborough by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And that's the trigger for us to say, oh, if that's the case, we need to look at it regarding any demolition delay possibility. So we can apply a demolition delay up to 6 months. But in order for us to do this, we have to determine if the building is either historically significant or if it's architecturally significant. The resources we use to help this determination include 5 different things. We go through the Massachusetts Commission files on the property. I contact the Historical Society and see what they might have in their archives. We do a walkthrough. We get input from the owner, and we also get community input, and that's the part of this discussion today, which will be the public hearing. The purpose of the delay, if we were to implement the 6-month delay, the purpose of the delay is to work with the owners and find another option that does not include the delay. So why don't we start off this now with the information that we have? So let me pull up a few things that'll guide us through the conversation. And if I can do this right, I can actually find stuff. All right. So let me, all right, share screen. Share screen. Share the screen. Yes. Aha. So the first thing we have is this information from the Massachusetts Historical Commission regarding this property. Has everybody had a chance to review it?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. We have a better picture coming up that we have on the property, but just in this photograph right now, the brick section of the building is not to be demolished. It is in the distance, it's the blue section of the building that's considered for demolition only. So let's see what we got. There are a few things that I wanted to highlight in here from a history perspective. I think it's important to realize that the site is historical, but the original factory that Farwell had burned down in 1899. So we're not looking at buildings that are very antique. They're not from the 1800s or the 1700s. We're looking at a building that was built in 1900. So just keep that in mind. So a lot of the information in the narrative, on the historical narrative, really describes what Farwell did with his business. And he did rebuild the building in 1900, but soon after that, it was purchased by other companies for other purposes. Right now, it's being occupied by the company Maytech, who are putting in the request for demolition. Let's see, what else do we have? We have pictures of the building. Let's see, we got go this way. So this is another photograph of the building, and it's really the highlight. It's the blue paneled building that's coming down, not the brick building.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can do it this way.
Norm, is that blue part, is that metal siding?
It's a
Yeah.
metal siding put over this is a picture of the original building. So it's a metal siding put over this. I think the owners will talk to us about why the siding was put up. This is what the inside looks like today. We got a few pictures we took a walk through a couple days ago. And, you know, it's a basic industrial building from the 1900s. Some steel, some big wooden beams. We got a couple more pictures of some beams in the ceilings. This is on the first floor.
Hmm.
Another picture of the old beams and the light.
Wow.
And this is taken by the river. Can you see the picture of my arrow?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I should have taken one more shot. This is where this wall goes right down to the riverbed. And so they're taking anything with the blue siding is coming. This is all coming down. And they'll describe that this this will be moved back from the river. They won't be right up against the river like it is now. And I think that's it for photographs. Yeah, this is one more. This is on, I think, the second floor. It was an office area and a hallway area. So that's what we got from the Mass Historical Commission. The old photograph I showed, that was what I was able to get from the Historical Society. But we walked through a few days ago. And now I'd really like to bring in the owners or representatives of the owners to discuss two things I asked them to look at. One is, have they looked at alternatives for the demolition? And the other question I had was, what's the driving force for the demolition? So if Matt or Tom, if you could speak to those two questions, that would be very helpful.
Sure. This is Matt here. I see Thomas joined us, but we have delayed this remodel for a number of years, trying to work within the footprint we had. But fortunately, business for us has grown and continues to grow. So we have just basically outgrown that existing space due to the changing nature of the product that we build. It's getting a little larger, a little heavier, and we just can't utilize that space. And not only on a logistics point of view, but from a safety point of view, we're using, heavier materials, and we can't get any industrial vehicles in there, and we're having to rely solely on manpower. And we've dodged a few bullets in terms of personnel getting hurt. So we've done everything we can to move everything into the production facility. But as I said, business is good, and we are handcuffed. We just have no room to grow. Forecasts, even through the COVID, we had a little hiccup there, but things are starting to open up, and 2021, hopefully it's looking good for us, hopefully for everybody as well. And it's just time that we move the space or remove that space and tie it into our existing footprint so that we have a more open flow where we can utilize industrial vehicles to move product around in a safe manner, additional space. Though we won't gain much space from an architectural standpoint, we'll gain significant usable space in terms of production and office space. The owner had looked, he did his best to try and find additional spaces in Northborough and other towns, but it's just not feasible, seeing as the investment we have on the site already to pick up and move, because it's a unique business, and we have the existing usable space set up very well for our needs, and to move would not make sense. To try and retask the space in its current condition, we gave it our best, and it just doesn't work. So here we are at this point in time, thinking that we need to modify the space so that we can grow and utilize it properly. Any questions?
So you're basically keeping the same footprint, but just restructuring the space so that you can, again, handle more workload. Are you gaining elevation at all?
We are. It has a third floor now, but it's not continuous on that building. So the idea is we take down the building now, make it continuous 3 floors, and tie into an existing building. It's in an alleyway, roughly, Tom would know better, roughly about 20 feet by 100 feet, so that we now tie into an existing building to have a continuous space.
Okay.
But you did say that the footprint would be approximately the same.
Yes, it is.
I'm wondering if Tom could just give us an idea what the plan is for any new construction.
You're muted, Tom.
You muted. Yeah.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Tom Reardon with Reardon and Company. So I'm the project architect. And as Matt has said, we are proposing to demolish that section that's about 40 feet by 140 feet along Hudson Street. The intention is to move away from Cold Harbor Brook by 10 to 11 feet and reconstruct a 3-story building, approximately 23,000 square feet. There is an alleyway about 11 feet wide between the existing assembly building and the current addition. We want to infill that alleyway so the bottom floor, the ground floor, would be contiguous, and that's the main assembly production area. And the upper floors would be for engineering, design, and office space. We will create a 10-foot wide space between the brick portion of the building on Hudson Street and the new addition. So we're going to detach them, and the brick building is going to remain, probably developed into some other use at another time, but the new addition will allow Maytech to be all in one complex together.
Mhm.
So sales, engineering, corporate, everybody, manufacturing will be integrated vertically and horizontally. And that will give them the space to be more efficient and effective and safer. And the new building proposed is also going to be non-combustible steel frame. I think I've sent some exterior elevations to Norm regarding the new exterior, and we believe it's a big improvement over what you currently see along Hudson Street.
Mhm.
Let me, I have that somewhere. I can pull that up. Let's see, this one.
But to address whether this existing structure is architecturally or historically significant, in terms of architectural significance, you really don't have much left in terms of a 19th century, early 20th century mill building. It's all, the openings have been closed up. It's clad with an aluminum siding. The interior is an old timber, type 3 mill building, combustible, old, irregular shapes and sizes. So it's not well suited for modern manufacturing.
Let's see, if I do this right, we get a picture of this. So are we all looking at this drawing?
Yep. Good.
So I guess if there's anything, I'm looking at the top drawing with the street elevation. It does look quite industrial. What would it look like for siding and the like, Tom?
Well, the exterior panels are insulated metal panels. Did you get the rendering?
No, what I have is this in the floor plans, but to be honest,
is there another there? All right, this might be a little more helpful. So,
oh, okay, yep.
So the bottom horizontal banding would be a dark gray metal panel. The upper would be a light gray, and the windows and doors and the gutters would be the blue that would match the existing metal building. On the far right side, the loading dock is at an angle because of the to allow for access for deliveries.
I see. Yep.
And then the other bump out is the stairwell on the far left. And you can also see the alleyway we're creating between the brick building and this proposed building.
The brick building is the carbonizing building on the
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not your building?
No, it is Maytech's.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So they're going to move into that while they demolish the existing addition, portion of the building. And then once the new addition is completed, they'll move out of the brick building and they'll repurpose that.
Now, currently there's a blue slab that covers the Cold Brook, the Cold Harbor Brook.
Yes.
That's going to go away, and it's actually going to be clear to get to the brook.
Yes, we'd have to put some kind of guardrail system there, and might be combined with a guardrail with fencing. Looking down into that, it's more of a sluiceway rather than a brook. It's a concrete bowl to channel the Cold Harbor Brook that went underneath the buildings.
Right. And that's where it goes into the Assabet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a nice looking area. It would be nice if it was visible now. Is there still going to be a concrete slab across it?
There is a portion further down, maybe 25, 30 feet away from Hudson Street, where there's a concrete slab. that covers the brook.
Right, and that will remain?
At this point, we have no plans of taking out. We don't want to destabilize these older structures.
Right.
Because there's some properties on the south side of the Cold Harbor Brook that do not belong to Maytech, but they were originally one company.
Hmm.
Does anybody else from the committee have any questions for the owners? If not, we have to open this up for the public hearing.
I do not.
All right, so Jim, could we, I know there's at least one, maybe two people waiting for the public hearing. Could we bring them in?
So sorry, do you mean for public comment?
Public comments, correct.
So if you'd like to make a public comment, you can use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Oh, perfect. And I am going to allow him to talk. And I believe you are muted. I'm going to ask to unmute.
The paperwork I have, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. But the paperwork I have has essentially a 3-minute time limit for public comment. Just so we're all aware. Dr. Volk, are you in?
Yes, I am in.
Oh,
I don't hear, I don't see myself, but probably my camera is not on.
We hear you fine.
Okay, then I will talk. That's simple. Just only a small comment, which is a combined between owner and the town combination. Is it possible to do the outside of the building in brick form? And if so, what would be the extent of costs, the additional cost which did cost, and then on the other side, what would be the ability of the town maybe to pitch in to have then in a long term a nicer look, which looks then historical or brick form or whatever, so for public purposes. So that's my question about this. If we can have an answer, if the architect can maybe answer the question first with the cost, and then on the other side, the town, what would be the possibility to have maybe grants or whatever for the public purposes? Thank you.
Let me speak first. Dr. Volk, the first thing is this project has already been reviewed by the Design Review Committee, and it's really not our forte to discuss the, it's really not our forte to comment on the construction. We're curious about what it is, but we have no input on what the new building is like. That comes under design review. Tom can certainly answer your question, but I just want to make sure you understand how the system works.
Okay, thank you.
The grant thing is certainly an interesting concept. We've never applied a grant to a private organization or a private home before. So it would be a whole new ballgame. And the money would not be available till, it's just so we understand how the system works. So let's say we applied for CPA funding for some financial support. We've already missed the deadline for this year. So the earliest we could possibly get for funding for something like that would be April 2022. So it's a good idea, and maybe it's something we need to consider down the road, but the sequencing of the time is really a bugaboo right now. So Tom, if you want to respond to Dr. Volk, that's your.
Sure. Well, like Norm mentioned, the design has already passed through design review and through the ZBA in terms of the new addition, and it has been approved by the design review and the ZBA. We had not considered using brick because of the cost. We're trying to do a factory building, a modern factory building that is safer, more energy efficient than what is currently there. And the building system that we are working with is much higher quality than the existing blue panels system that you see on Hudson Street. But we were not contemplating the additional cost of using a brick veneer. The brick would not be structural, it would just be a veneer.
Correct.
And that would be above and beyond our budget.
And Dr. Volk, Matt Pisani here with Maytech. I just want you to, Tom has done an amazing job of making this not look so industrial. I mean, granted, it is industrial, but the picture is good. But when you see it in color and you see the actual materials he's used, I think you'll be impressed with what he has come up with.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Volk. Jim, is there anybody else that has comment?
I do not believe so, not at this time, but if anybody has a comment, you can use the raise your hand feature. And if you're calling in through a phone, I believe it is *9.
All right, we'll give that a minute, see where we are.
Not a problem. I just have only one attendee and it's Dr. Volk, so I don't believe anybody else will be asking for public comment at this time.
Okay. So does the committee feel we have enough information to make a decision this evening regarding if the property is considered significant from a historical or from an architectural perspective? So we can have a discussion just on that right now, what our thoughts might be. Rather than go right out to a vote, I think we probably should at least bounce some ideas off.
I think I do.
Yeah, good, Mike.
I was, huh?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I mean, having gone over doing the site walkthrough, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that it is a old industrial building that at one point had some significance to the town in terms of, employment and, it was part of the cone manufacturing, which was part of the history of the town, and then turned into some sort of a woolen mill, recovery of woolen stuff. But, I think that historical aspect, even though it is part of the town history, it is not really a significant aspect of, from what I've been able to see of, there isn't like a series of buildings and, seminars associated with that part of the history of the town. So to me, it's an industrial building that at one point had some significance, but I think I see it as worthy of moving into the modern era, I guess. I don't have any problem with the plan.
Anybody else have some thoughts?
I agree with Mike. There is no problem with the plan as far as the Matt Pisani and Tom Reardon are concerned. I vote for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, unless we have another comment or two, I'd like someone to make a motion. How about if I read a motion and someone says, what's the buzzword people can use? So moved. All right. I'll make a motion that the property for the partial demolition of the 56 Howard Street property is not considered historically significant nor architecturally significant.
So moved.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
So Mike got the second. So everything is a roll call vote. So we'll go down the list. Mike,
Yes, I approve the plan for demolition.
very good. Bruce,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
I agree.
Millie,
Agreed.
Brian Swanson,
Approve.
Bob Light.
And I vote.
Yeah, yeah, you're all in. You're in hook, line, and
Okay.
sinker now.
I approve.
And I also approve. So the next steps are I need to send a letter to the building department and the Board of Selectmen to show that demolition can proceed with this project. On a personal note, I'm kind of happy that the company wants to stay in town, and anything we can do to encourage that is a good thing.
Mhm.
And I'm very anxious to see, I think what Tom's presenting in terms of the facade that people would see every day is going to be an improvement over what we're looking at today. So good luck with your project. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very
Appreciate it,
much.
folks. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Time.
Take
Good
care.
seeing you, Norm.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have to close the public hearing now. So we'll do the roll call vote to close the public hearing. All right. Mike,
Yes, sir.
Bruce.
Yep.
Brian Smith,
Yeah, agree.
Millie,
Yep.
Brian Swanson,
Yes.
Bob Light,
Yes.
and myself. So we're all set unanimously. We'll close the public hearing. So now we can get to the regular agenda. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Prior meeting minutes. Thank you for doing them again, Bruce. Very efficient this time.
Hmm.
I felt bad that I responded like in a couple hours after you sent it out.
Yeah, you were saying that you were late, but you 24 hours. Like Norm, you got a month.
So has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
They look good.
All right. So I need a motion for that.
I make a
I
motion to
I
approve
make
meeting
I make a
minutes
motion we
of
accept them.
Wednesday, December 16th.
All right, we're gonna give Millie the motion maker. Mike, you want to second that?
I will second that. Yes.
All right, so roll call again. So we're going down. Mike,
Approve.
Bruce,
Approve.
Brian Smith,
Approve.
Millie.
Can I actually vote on these if I wasn't at the meeting?
No, you cannot. Thank you for
Okay.
pointing that out. Sorry, Millie.
Yep.
Brian
Mark,
Swanson.
just point of order. Can she move that we accept if she wasn't there?
That's right. How could she approve the meeting? How would she know? That's, you're making a very valid point, Bruce. Thank you. So we're gonna have to backtrack just a little bit. Mike, can you make your motion? I know you wanted to do it.
Okay.
Really jumped the gun, but good.
I did.
I make a motion we accept the minutes of the meeting of December 10th for the Northborough Historic District Commission.
All right, second,
Second.
Brian Smith. Got it. So now we'll do the routine again. So Mike,
Yes, I approve.
Bruce,
Approve.
Brian Smith,
Approve.
Brian Swanson,
Approve.
Bob Light,
Approve.
and myself. So we're all set with the meeting minutes. That worked good. All right. Prior CPA request. Brigham Street Burial Ground, interpretive sign. I got the revised version of that sign around 4 o'clock, and I sent it out to everybody. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. I can certainly bring it up.
Yeah, it looks good.
We're going in the right direction, I felt. Oh. Let me see. Give me a minute to find it, just so that we're all on the same page. Huh, where'd it go? Yeah, look away somewhere else. Hold on. All right, so I think I found it. I found the email. We'll start with the email. Let's see what we get here. Share the screen. Let's see here. Everybody looking at this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So let's scroll. I'm going to scroll down to her answers to our questions. We'll start with that, okay?
Yep.
All right. So these are the questions we had from the last meeting. And I like the way she did this, answering in blue. It's made of aluminum. It's a hollow tube. The color is a black frame and legs. The coating is a two-part catalyzed finish, similar to car paint. Interesting. If you want to change the height, just put a little deeper into the ground. So that's a good thing. She changed the contrast on the information. She made it a darker gray with white lettering. So you can take a look at that. She removed the Historical Society logo. She made the town logo more prominent. She put on the statement funded by the Community Preservation Act. And the new table. She also looked at the new table. We had just on a minute on the new table. When I got it back to Beth Finch McCarthy, she updated some things because she had done a little more homework. So the table is, it's just been updated since probably a year ago when we had the other table. Let's see.
Maybe we should make that section of the sign replaceable so that she can update it every once in a while.
Yeah, we'll come up with, well, I think the sign lasts 20 years. So when you do it, we do it in 20 years. So this is the PDF of the structure. So make it a little bit bigger. And there's more information about, how it's built on the left-hand corner down here. It's how it's designed.
We're not seeing that one, no.
You're not seeing that one.
Nope.
Oh, well.
You're gonna click on it.
Drag it onto the screen or something.
All right, let me, as soon as I think I know how to do this thing, I get to it.
We're still looking at the email that you originally put up.
Okay.
So I think if you click on it and then screen share.
All right. Okay, I see you guys here. The trick was I thought I put it in, I saved it where it belonged and it didn't show up here. Let me see. I'm sharing this. Can you see this? What are you looking at now?
Your email.
It says I'm sharing this image. Son of a gun. Let me try this.
So it's coming up on your screen?
Yeah, it tells me everything's okay.
Huh.
If you hit the, I'm on an iPad.
How about that? Is that
Yeah, there it is.
That's it.
So
All right, so I get to get out of the email and anyway. So there's a little more detail on the left-hand corner about how the mounting is and the like. There's a little more information here. I'll blow it up a little bit.
Hey, Norm,
Yeah,
I had a question on the table. I'm looking at the table from the email that you sent.
well, wait, we'll get to, I'm gonna enlarge that one. We'll go over it in more detail.
Okay.
So first we'll go over this is the basic construction of the unit. And I wanna just see
Sure.
how that's shaping out. It's more, I think the red is where you should put more detail in. And then this
Yeah.
is the information about the panel construction. So
How far from the road will it be?
Wherever we want, probably maybe not even 10 feet though.
Okay.
So what the issue is like plowing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a regulation about how close it could be. Plus, there's no place to park there. You have to kind of park on the ground, on the grass.
Yeah, that's true. It's not like gets a lot of visitors, but you can park just up from it a little bit, and you're
Right.
I think you're okay, depending where
Yeah,
we put it. But
Yeah, as long as the town is okay, I'm sure it has to be back a ways from the street.
well, we get there's two things that have to happen here anyway. If what we look at today looks pretty good, I need to send it to the DPW and the cemetery committee. They need to know what's going on with the cemetery. So they have to review it, and I'm sure DPW will have recommendations on where to install it.
Okay, good.
All right, now let's see if I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go, let's just stop sharing, if I did that right. And go here. All right. All right, we looking at the actual information?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. I'm getting better at this. I'm not really, all right. So, a lot of control here. Here we go.
Woo!
Technology is more than I can handle. All right, so let's just look at the layout first. It's now a deeper gray with a white lettering. That's
Looks
one of
good.
Yeah, that's better than the last time. I like that.
Okay. Now the map, the town's gonna make me a new map. The reason why it's got the shadowing on the right-hand side, it was photographed, the page was curled. So they're gonna try to give me a better image.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming. I don't have that yet, but that's coming. And why don't we look at the table in some detail, like Mike was doing? Can do that.
Yeah, that looks good.
Wow.
So Mike, what caught your eye?
Well, when they talk about status,
Yeah,
I'm a little, so status refers to basically whether, I guess whether or not the person is buried there.
no, do you see at the bottom, if you go below the table, there's a definition of status, and it tells you
Yeah.
what the three different ones are?
And they're all kind of linked back to sort of a high, medium, low probability of the person being buried someplace in the cemetery is what I took away.
That's
that
correct. That's
that
another way
correct?
of saying it. Yeah, the known is fact. The probable is most likely, and the possible essentially needs more investigation.
Hmm.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Well, it's okay. I mean, I was just thinking I don't know. I was thinking of a high, medium, low probability. Just say, what's the likelihood of it per person? I was confused because if you have the person labeled, you know the date, birth date, and a death date, and then you say we're not sure if the person's buried here. I got a little kind of confusing in that. Well, why would the person be on the table to begin with? I guess. But
Well,
maybe I'm reading into it too much.
Well, you might be, but I think one thing we have to appreciate is the level of effort to get the birth dates and the death dates for these people. If you look at the probable, if you look at the status for probable, its burials were identified if the person died between 1726-7 and 1749. So what you have to appreciate, and I'm glad I was able to communicate with Beth, she looked at all the people that were in town at that time and is going through family histories and death records to find out who could have been buried there. So records aren't really clear. So just think about all the different names, all the different last names on that list. She has to go through each family name and find out who was born when, and find a record of when they died, and then if it's possible that they are buried there. Some of them make good sense. So a husband's buried there clearly, but the wife has died maybe several years later, but there's no recognition she's buried there, but one would think that she would be. So it's that kind of logic. And the possibles are, again, some of these you only have death records on, but her research shows that the person might be buried there because they did die at some point. So it's one of these things, you look at something like this table, it's like, oh yeah, somebody found the table. This is years of work putting this table together. This is not a couple of hours because of all the background that she had to look through.
So
I just want that appreciation as a genealogist, what she's digging into to find out who are possible people buried there.
I'm not questioning any of that. That's not.
No, I don't think
that's
you
not
are.
my
But I
intent.
just wanted to explain, because again, this thing is recorded, and if somebody wants to understand the table, I want to explain how much work goes into all of that database.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, when I first looked at this, my initial impression was status. I was confused as to what status actually, and I went down and looked at the footnotes down at the bottom of the table, and it seemed as though status referred to something related to whether or not the person is actually in the cemetery. And, when I went there with you a couple of days ago, I mean, there's only like 4 or so actual headstones. And then there's a whole bunch of, the wolf stones and stuff, but it doesn't seem to connect. The numbers don't match up to the numbers on this table. So the conclusion I came to was there's only a few people that are buried in this cemetery. And then when I started looking at the status, I got a little puzzled as to, it's really her best guess based on all the evidence she's been compiled. And I'm not downplaying whatsoever her level of effort or what she's trying to do. Believe me, I appreciate it. What I'm saying is I think what I'm getting at is it seems as though not all these people are buried in this cemetery.
Well, that was one of the cross references we wanted to do with the ground penetrating radar evaluation. And they came up with a number. I'd have to look up what the number is, but they came up with a number that there could be 60 grave sites in that area.
Okay.
So granted, there are 5 with stones, and there are a lot of full stones, but
clearly
that doesn't identify all of the possibilities.
Clearly, if there's a gravestone, obviously the guy's buried there.
Right.
I mean, what the difficulty is I think, and I said this, I think last time, was trying to connect the dots between the genealogy work, the GPR work, and making the table connect to, we think every person on this table is buried here. And if the answer, well, first, do we think every person on this table is buried here? If the answer is maybe, then I think, I'm not saying we should do this, but a possible thought was perhaps we should change the column to something related to probability of burial in the cemetery or likelihood of grave in the cemetery or something. Because that's really, I think, what the point of that column is, isn't it?
So essentially, you would prefer a different word than the word status.
Well, yeah, the short answer, because I don't understand status, what that means. Is it status related to, I guess it's status related to whether the person is buried in the cemetery, or status related to, I guess that's the only thing it could be. We're talking about a grave site, cemetery. So the person's either there or not. Whether the exact location of the grave can be deciphered, obviously the answer to that is no. But whether the person, so the other question is, is it really likely, probable, highly probable, unlikely that the person is buried there at all? And that's all I'm saying.
Well, there are no unlikelies.
So you're saying every person on that table
It's
is
probable.
probably buried there?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you
Or
can
possibly.
find a death record or that they've been buried in another cemetery.
I suspect in looking at that and looking at the notation of status,
Yeah.
I suspect, having done some genealogical research myself, I suspect that might be Beth's notation on where she is in her research, right? You know, yep, this is probable because, you know, I know these things over here, and this is known because I know this here. And it may, you know, it might not align exactly to what we need on the sign. It may be more her own personal notations as to where she is in her research.
Well, that's why we say the information is of 2021.
Yeah.
And we did, at one point, we did think about not including the table. But I'll be honest, I went up to Canada and found a gravesite of the Corbins up there from the 1700s. And it's this kind of information that really makes you want to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I felt, you know, one option we could just put the last names of some people and say, well, there's some Goodnows there, there's a couple Tomlins, and call it a day. But I think, to me, it's like, even if we have some doubts, if somebody's looking up their ancestors and they could come to this thing and say, oh, there's a high probability that my ancestor's buried here, that's better than not knowing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think maybe, and maybe Mike, you know, jump in if I'm not representing this correctly, but maybe the term status is maybe what's throwing some people here, because I think it's more like, you know, certainty rather than status.
Okay, so I can tell you my thought. I think kind of like a logic diagram in these kind of things, where you have, if, you know, the little triangle with the if then.
Yeah.
And you go out and you have a decision tree, and I'm like, so if you know, in other words, one decision box would be, you know, grave headstone present. You know, that puts you in the category of, you know, highly likely or definite that the person. And this is the question. Maybe back up. This is the question. Really, I guess we're talking about is, if we say everybody on that table is buried there, then that defines the a priori, you know, beginning of the discussion. The only question then would be, is the grave known? And to me, the answer to all of that would be, unless there's a marker there, you know, like rocks, like a wolf grave, you can't tell who that person is unless there's an actual stone. You can't say the person's there. So it's really just the only people that you know for sure of where they're buried, if that's the question we're trying to answer, is because there's a headstone and a footstone.
No,
everybody else.
That's not true. That's not true. She went through Reverend Parkman's old diary to see which burials he attended. And some of these knowns are because in his diary, he went to that person's burial at that site. So no, there is no stone associated with it, but those are some of the knowns. I'm getting the feeling the hang up here is status is the wrong word. We can just make a better word for that. We don't have to decide now. This is going to go through another iteration, I'm sure. But I think if we come up with a better word for status, or even the word certainty popped up, certainty of burial there, that might work. You know,
your likelihood and something.
Yeah, likelihood of burial or something like that.
Well, I thought we said anybody in that table is pretty certain that they're buried there.
No, that's the last ones are possible. They're possibly buried there.
Is known, probable, and possible.
Okay, so you have a question of whether they're there at all, and then another question of where they're located in the grave, in the cemetery.
No, there's no connection other than the few of them having the gravestone markers. We're not trying to connect any of those burials to a specific spot in the cemetery.
Actual spots, yeah.
Okay.
You know, I'm okay with status, but maybe the way to get around it is leave status, but then below it in the footnote where it says status, you just have a little bit of an explanation next to status, like probability that the person is in
Oh,
the
I
grave.
see.
Yeah, that would work too.
That way it wouldn't get too wordy. You wouldn't have
Oh,
to
I
expand the
see.
column.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
okay with status, but you're right. Maybe a short sentence after status
Yeah.
to.
What does that mean? Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Maybe,
that
maybe-
seems like a reasonable approach.
and maybe a little nitpick here. The 3 categories under status on the sign,
Yep.
if they could maybe be indented a little bit so that it's clear that they fall under status, they're not separate items. You got existing stone, you got status, and then known, and then probable. It's not clear to me anyway that those 3 necessarily fall under status.
I agree with you on that, Bruce.
Yeah, maybe just, the known, the probable, and the possible down in the text down below.
Mm-hmm.
Just indent those a little
Oh,
bit.
I see. From a formatting perspective, I understand. Yes, yes. Yeah, I also see there's a parenthesis missing and stuff like this. So yeah, I see what you're driving at.
Yep.
Yeah, I see. And I think you're right. If we put more information about status, saying the probability the person is located in the burial ground, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
I think that'll clarify.
And maybe one more really nitpicky thing here.
No, this is the time to do it.
Leslie's not here, so I got to take her place. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of just looking at the formatting of the dates in that spreadsheet there,
Yeah.
some of them that are single, like the 7th or the 4th, some of them appear like 4, and some of them appear 04. And I think we should be.
Oh, she didn't pick up on. I had Leslie went through this, and we had a conversation with Beth about some of it. So there's an inconsistency on the day. You seeing that? Oh yeah, I see November 1st.
One November.
Tomlin. Yeah, and there's
And
another.
one-
Okay,
yeah.
that's easy stuff to fix. But
Yeah. Just we should be consistent about that.
yeah, you're making Leslie proud of you.
I'm channeling my inner Leslie.
On
Is
a- on
there
a
such a
s-
thing as an inner Leslie? I think it just comes out.
On a side note, did you see the person Faye? I live right off of Faye Lane, so I'm sure the guy Faye lived around where I live now. He lost 6 children in a matter of a few years. I think there were 4 young kids, infants, and
Oh yeah, I see the
he
thing.
lost like 4 of them in the year 1747 or 46. So I was looking around on the internet, see what the heck happened in 1746 or 7. Was there some kind of a smallpox or possibly a fire or something? And it was they're all the time of death or the date of death are all the same. Imagine losing six children. And
If you look at the table, look at the ages.
I know.
They're under the age of 5 years old. There's 23 deaths.
Yeah.
Table only has 43 people. There's
Definitely
something going on.
There's only like 3 or 4 people that made it past like 50.
Yeah. Times were tough.
I guess so.
I had a question for Millie.
Yeah,
Since you live in one of the Fay houses,
I do. I'm looking at that going, I hadn't heard about this, but I definitely want to look into that.
do you have a record as to what Fay built your house?
Yeah, let me see. I don't have it off the top of my head. We have it listed as Asa Fay,
Okay, yeah.
but there was also a question. I actually just did this, I think over the summertime, whether it was Gershom or Asa, it's called the Asa Fay house, but we
Okay.
actually think it was a relative of his that built it.
Small,
Yeah.
huh?
So I can get that out for another meeting, but I do want to look into those 6 Fay children there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
see where they fall in. Well, yeah, didn't mean that, but
Okay, so what I'm looking at is improving after the word status, putting something like the probability a person is located in the burial ground. That clarifies that. Putting an indent after the status so that it's that those three definitions look a little clearer. Consistency on the date. I noticed there's as I said, there's a parenthesis missing on after Reverend Ebenezer Parkman. There's a parenthesis missing there. Is there anything else funded by the Northborough Community Preservation Act? Looks okay. The town seal is okay.
Ebenezer Parkman, the list,
Yeah.
1703 to 1782, but there's no,
Yeah, the closing parenthesis.
yeah,
Yeah, I got that. That's on the list.
okay.
If we're at this level of detail, we're making progress. Anything else drop out that you can see?
Just maybe one more comment, because, you know, that's what
Good job.
So I just, as you know, I've got my own copy open here, and as I zoom in on it, the resolution of the photograph of the headstone starts to fall apart. And I want to make sure if it's depending on what the size is, we want to make sure that we've got enough resolution. It's not.
You know, that's a question I'll ask the person who's putting it together, because they'll know the actual size. I don't know how, you know, I don't know if I'm blowing it up way bigger than it would actually be, but yeah, I didn't notice that. That's a. Yeah, you'd hate to blow it up and realize you can't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it may be that we only get a certain amount of resolution out of whatever the photograph was.
right.
Well, this was pulled off of, I pulled this off of the Antiquarian Society in Worcester, because they have this inventory. Because this was the best image I could find. When I took photographs of it, they weren't coming out, the lettering wasn't nearly as clear as it is on this. But we may lose that if we blow it up. So it's a pixel issue, and I'll just ask them to take a look at it at full size and see if they lose the resolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not going to make any changes to this, and I'm not going to ask them to make any changes because I want to run it by and see if there's any large comments from the Cemetery Commission and the DPW. And then when they get their comments, then we'll put it back in to get it fine-tuned. So next month, with any good luck, next month we should be good to go. All right. Well, that was progress. Very good. Yeah. All right. Next topic. We'll stop sharing. I don't share anymore. All right. The next topic is the Howard Street Burial Ground interpretive sign. All right. So this one's straightforward. We're just reproducing the sign that's currently there, only it's made out of pressure-treated wood that's rotting and leaking. So I think I showed it the last time. We have the map. We have all the information that relates to the actual headstones to the people that are buried there. And then on the right-hand side was some wording, and we finally were able, I went back to find some of the wording because of the water infiltration on the sign, we couldn't read some of the information. I had to go back to the original headstone and just read it off the headstone. So that's all set. My plan is to finalize it and within a week or two, send it out for quotes. And then we'll see what that looks like. But this one, our interaction is to make sure they do it right. But in terms of the information on the sign and everything, it's all that Scout did about, it's almost 15 years ago. Yeah, that's what that's
Pretty cool sign. It's a very cool sign.
Yeah. The Howard Street Cemetery, I emailed the woman who's doing the National Register documentation. I sent her some additional information that we had, and she said that she'd be working on it certainly in the month of January. So I'm hoping there'll be by the February meeting, we might have something to review. So we'll go from, so we'll see how that looks. The preservation plan is really no report. I've been brushing up on what needs to go in a preservation plan. So that's all I've been doing at this point. No pen to paper yet.
Okay.
The archaeological sites in Northborough, we did get a response and we got some information. And Mike,
Yes, sir.
talk about that.
Okay. On December 22nd, we received a nice package from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Massachusetts Historical Commission, from Brona Simon, who is the State Historic Preservation Officer and the state archaeologist. She sent a very nice package that has a few maps in it, you know, X marks the spot kind of thing of all the sites, archaeological sites in Northborough. And so I've kind of gone through a bunch of this, and so it's the information we were looking for.
Okay.
Essentially, there's what they call 20 ancient sites and then 3 historical sites. So a historical site would be a location where there was a house. There's one, for example, on Route 20 where the house has been demolished and there's basically a stone foundation remaining. The ancient sites are the kind of the ones that are a little bit more interesting. They go back, and that's where you find the the artifacts like the arrowheads and that kind of stuff. And it, each site has a little field report that some archaeologists did 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And a couple of them are kind of interesting. I don't want to bore you, but one of them is called the on Old Stony Brook. It has, they found 17 tools and various types of stones that they use to scrape deer hide and whatnot. And it's off of D'Angelo Drive someplace. And it's down, if you go down.
Whoop, hold on. I'm going to have to interrupt you, Mike. Don't be specific. Remember the letters we got back. We cannot be specific where these sites are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's down. Okay. It's down by someplace, close to the Marlboro line. And it was I guess a place where it was an encampment there, and they found quite a bit of artifacts down there. The exact location, it's hard to tell from the map, but it was, I guess it's probably the most significant one, other than the Mastodon site, which is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's just a bunch of, small sites that people found various Indian artifact, like mostly arrowheads and, flint pieces, stuff like that. So I guess Norm and I spoke, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the package and send it over to the town planner, Kelly Jalbert, and have her kind of hold it for safekeeping. And then what Norm and I talked about, it's probably worth just mentioning, is who gets access to this information. We were kind of trying to come up with a plan or a thought process of what somebody's need to know. And so if somebody is planning on building a building, then there might be, a need to know that there is a historic or archaeological site in the area, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how that process goes, but so we were just trying to hash that out, and I guess it would be interesting to open if it's okay with you, Norm, the floor to anybody has any other thoughts on it.
Well, just for the background, is in any of these Native American archaeological sites are all need to know. And So we were able to get this information, but it came with a cover letter explaining that this is not common knowledge, it's not general information. So that was the reason to bring it and have it placed in with the planning department, because if somebody's doing some work, at least they have the documentation of these sites. But it does give us a thought about, and Mike had brought it up before, is at some point, should the town do some type, we can have someone come in and actually do an evaluation of Northborough in terms of its ancient sites. And that might be something we should add to a list.
Well, and the last paragraph of the letter from Brona Simon actually says that. She says the Mass Historical Commission recommends that Northborough have a site-wide archaeological reconnaissance survey undertaken to determine which areas are archaeologically sensitive. So she's saying there's enough information here that triggers something in her mind that, you know, we should do a site-wide survey, and then we will be able to use that to put a big circle around an area and say, if you're going to build or thinking about doing something in this area, that you should be aware of, you know, that is archaeologically sensitive area. I don't know if that is something that could be done as far as the zoning goes, or if there's just the planning board would implement something like that. I don't know.
I wonder if there are any legalities around that.
Well, I think for our purposes, though, you know, if we can justify CPA funding for something like that, I think the planning board would support something like that, because they would probably like to know when somebody comes in. You know, I don't know how this all works. I mean, just, you know, all the work that's been done up on Bartlett Street with all that new development, I don't know if the standard practice is that somebody goes in and evaluates the land before they bulldoze it. I don't know what those practices are, but I think we could justify a CPA request for it, and I think we get support for it. So that might be something to consider a year from now.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, if we've got the details on it now, I mean, you know, Bartlett Street, I mean, I don't know how much detail there was. I don't know, you know, but if we've got the details on it, then
they vary quite a bit. I mean, there's some, matter of fact, Brona Simon, the woman who sent us the letter, who's now the state archaeologist, actually has done some of those surveys. Some of her field notes are in this package. And
okay.
Yeah, and she actually found quite a bit of stuff, the survey that she was involved in.
And the other thing in the documents, a lot of them reference all of the artifacts that are currently on display at the Northborough Historical Society's museum.
Ah,
Right.
If you go to the museum, there's a whole display of, and then the museum actually says where they were found. So, but if it when the hopefully in time when the museum's open, I have more interest now to know what they have, because I never really paid attention to it.
You know, Norm, after we were talking, I went back and kind of looked at the map a little bit, and a lot of these sites sort of coincide with the Indian trail that we were talking about. That we actually have a sign.
Yeah.
You know, they're not that far from that area, and they could all be linked to that trail, which would be kind of an interesting way to circle back to the, you know, to the sign that we put out that says this is the old Indian trail that had some significance as far as the praying towns go and all that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never made that connection. That was a good one, Mike.
Yeah, because a lot of the sites, as I said, they run along the border with Marlborough, which is down by Bartlett Street area, right where our sign is. So.
All right. So I think to me, the action item out of this is to, you know, maybe do some homework this year and find out what that type of an inventory costs and see how that all works.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and that's what that guy that I first talked with. What's his name? I want to get his name right here. Jonathan Patton.
Yeah.
I keep getting his name wrong. anyway, that's what he was saying, is that, you know, you should have a townwide survey done, and it's reinforced in the letter.
What I can do, Mike, is there's I think it's, I always can't remember if it's Preservation Massachusetts or if it's another organization. They have a complete list of all kinds of contractors that do all kinds of work, and that's for historical purposes. And I know that they have a list of contractors that do these kinds of surveys. Why don't I forward that to you, Mike? And if you don't mind, you know, poke through it and see if there's a few we could contact and just get an idea.
Sure.
Because
Well,
it's gonna take a while to justify it and get an idea of what we need, but
Patton sent me, when I had him on the phone that time, he gave me the name of 3 of the companies that he's used quite a bit.
oh,
But it
that's
would be-
good.
Yeah, and he recommended any of those. One of them is in Massachusetts. I think another one is in Rhode Island. But he said they do work with those people all the time, and he can more or less recommend any of them would be able to do a good job. The problem that I always envision with this is sort of like, what's the scope of work? What's their deliverable going to be? What level of effort? How many man hours are we expecting these guys to do? When you say site wide, what does that mean? The guy walks, every square inch of Northborough looking for arrowhead or what? So I don't, that's the part that I think they're going to say, well, unless they have a good idea. Well, we did something similar for another town, and we could do the same thing for you, and it cost X.
What I've done in the past is contacted towns to find out if they've had it done, and then ask the town to forward us what their reports were like. So then you get an idea of what's typical, and you can find out what it would cost. So we can do some back homework to understand how this is generally done, who does it, what it would cost. I've always found that if we approach any town that has something done through either the planning department or the historical commission, I'd say the response is within a week. It's amazing how friendly these people are.
Mhm.
So we don't have to, I think that's kind of like I'm thinking between now, CPA requests start in November, which sounds like a long time away. But if you start trying to do some homework, November sneaks up on you pretty quick. So Mike, if you've got 3 places, you could just contact them and start talking to them. What's this like? How does it work? That would be great.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll send
Are you going to send? Yeah, send me that list that you got, and I'll kind of cross-check it with these guys, and I don't know. 3 is probably my limit as to how many I'm going to contact. So.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'll pick the top 3, probably the 3 that this guy said, but
Mike, you mentioned there's 20 sites, but then there's 3 historical sites.
Yeah, they break so there's 23 total. There's 20 what they call ancient sites, and then there's 3 historical. So historical would be a site that's an old farm or a homestead that doesn't exist anymore.
But would that also be a need to know?
Well, yeah, I guess it would be, because they're all kind of classified as archaeological sites, but it's pretty easy to find it because it's right on the side of the one that I'm aware of. It's right on the side of Route 20. It's just an old stone foundation.
I'm just wondering if the state said that there was a low risk that people would disrupt the area because it's already been picked over, would it be a candidate for a historical marker?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
That could be.
It would do more good to have a historical marker there so other people can share in it than to just keep it secret.
Yeah. I mean, I was involved in some projects in New York where we had to go through this archaeological survey before we could do what we wanted to do. And it wasn't, at least in New York, it wasn't that they could prevent you from disturbing the land that was considered, an archaeological site, but you had to have the artifacts gone over, and then the the person who was registered archaeologist had to kind of come in there. And if it was of that much significance, they would go out there with the little brushes and stuff and start going through it. And it would essentially delay the project until the point where it was almost undoable. But at least what my experience was, it's more of making sure that you have assessed the ground to see if there was something that would be of significance. And if there was, then you kind of go into the next level of, whether you start laying out the grids with the string and going in with little paint brushes and sifting everything and all that stuff. But in the end, you could still do what you wanted to do, but you had to make sure that the site was assessed for all its archaeological value. And that went on too for the Big Dig. I know that for sure. When they were doing the Big Dig in Boston, they did a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. So I think we know what we want to do, Mike. I'll send you some information.
Okay.
We can get that ball rolling and see what the future holds. So funding.
Yeah. Is this all part of my only question, is this all going to be part of the town historical
Preservation plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a sentence or two on there that we're going to address the archaeological sites. Now, yeah, that will definitely be in there.
Mm-hmm.
So in the historic preservation plan we're looking into, doing a site-wide archaeological survey or something to that effect?
Yes, it will definitely say that it's being highly recommended by the Mass Historical Commission that we do this. And it's also in the master plan. It also came up. So it's really, we will say we want to do this because we're getting some recommendations that this should get done. So we also need to talk to the planning department too. So yeah, this is good because if we do our homework now, then come November, we can make sense and say, look, this is time to try to fund it.
Copy.
All right. Let's see. Next topic. We can switch to the next topic. It's the Old Grange Hall, 10th School Street. Everything, it keeps changing, but it's always good news. Right now there is a party that's interested in it, and they want to make it into a single family home. So that's as of 2 days ago, I called up the realtor to ask what the update was. So
nice.
An interesting single family home, huh? Especially yeah.
Yeah.
You have a dormitory.
Big stage, second floor.
So hopefully that moves along. Never heard anything about demolition with that building, which is good news. The next topic was the planned demolitions on the old state hospital grounds in Northborough. I just got the contacts today. First of all, I contacted the Mass Historical Commission about demolition of buildings on the state property. And they got me in contact. They told me since they don't own the property, they said the best thing to do is to contact the people at DCAM. So for those who don't know that acronym, DCAM, it's the Division of Capital Assets Management and Maintenance. And I just got their contacts this afternoon. I emailed them. I don't have a response yet. The two questions I have for them is one, exactly what are they going to demolish? Because there's quite a bit of properties. Those water towers are actually in Northborough, which surprised me. And I'm particularly interested if they're going to want to demolish the brick Chauncey Hall building, which is right on Lyman Street.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So those are the two questions I have for them. I have no answers at this point.
So did we get paperwork on that?
No, it's been happenstance. I happened to find out through the Conservation Commission because they had a meeting with the DCAM people because conservation had to be involved because of, I guess there was a brook or something. And that's how I found out that demolition was happening. So the only way I found out it was happenstance. They don't have to notify us. It's not Northborough property. It's property of the state. So.
Okay. All right.
And I want to see if we can get on there, and get permission to take pictures on some of the things that they're going to take down. So.
Okay.
I thought some of that land was on Northborough property.
Oh, yeah, all of this is this is all the Northborough property that we're interested in. It's
Oh, okay.
on Northborough property, but it's not owned by the town of Northborough.
Right.
So we have no
So-
jurisdiction if they're gonna tear it down or not.
But when the state, I guess, gave their part of that property to Westboro, right? Didn't
I don't know
Westboro?
if they gave it, but certainly the
Okay.
town of Northborough got possession of it and then proceeded to sell it for that large housing development. Some of it, not all of it.
Okay. All right.
Northborough is always, Westborough was very aggressive because they had so much land to approach the state to find a way to purchase it and then develop it. At Northborough, we haven't really got to that point yet. Now that there's some demolition that's involved, I think Northborough might just sit up and take notice. We really haven't taken notice of our section of it.
Hmm.
All right, so that's where that stands. Hopefully we can at least get pictures, and I'd like to know exactly what they want to take down. White Cliffs Committee update. So did I send you all the final report or the link to the final report? I've sent you guys a bunch of stuff lately. I can't remember what I did. Is that ringing a bell?
Yeah, I think.
200-page document.
I don't think I saw that, so I'm not sure.
Okay. It's probably not, because it was only this week where it was active, put on the town website. It was this week or the end of last week. So the report is out, and I guess because if other people want to watch this, there is a link to the town's website that has the full report from DBVW about their evaluation of the White Cliffs property.
Okay.
And I actually want to read something so that I'm consistent. So DBVW, they were responsible for 3 main tasks, and they've accomplished the task. One was how to secure the building from weather, rodents, and intruders. Also, they thoroughly evaluated the building, and this includes such things as the structural stability, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. They prepared digitized drawings of, so there's essentially blueprints of the entire building with all the floors, all the dimensions. Now have a full floor plan, which we did not have before. They documented all the building's modifications over time. They also documented the history of the building since once it got sold by the Wessons to the current owners. And they identified all of its character-defining architectural features. So that was what they did in terms of their thorough evaluation of the building. This is all in the report. The other thing is they also evaluated in a cursory overview some of the basic general considerations for reuse options. And the basic result of that is that it's a challenge. There are some financial challenges to the building to get it to be reused. And the next step is to find partners that can work with the town to make this happen. So there's still unknowns about what the best reuse is. The important thing is now to find someone who has some deep pockets and has some reuse interest in the property. So that's where that stands. I will send the link to all of you so that you can browse through it. There's also a link that has the presentation that they made 3 weeks ago. There's also a link for the video of the presentation. Because that was the final thing that was required from them, is to make a public disclosure of all of their findings. So they're doing it by video. All right, Community Preservation Committee, which is what Leslie's on. What's happened with that is there's 2 things that have the historical bent on them. The Historical Preservation Committee. Oh, I forgot, Millie, you're on that too. So why don't you tell us what's going on with historical stuff?
Well, I wasn't prepared to really say too much on this, but that the CPC did see an application from the Historical Society, and they approved, I believe it was 22,000 for that.
Yep, that's what I remember.
For repair, maintenance, painting, and preservation of that building. So that was good. And what was the other thing, Norm?
The other thing is the the payments we require for the White Cliffs.
Oh, yes, the ongoing payment,
Payments, yeah, for the bond, that's the word.
the bond, that's the word.
Bond.
So,
So those two have gone to the next step, town meeting. Excellent. Is there anything about the master plan implementation committee? Not yet, it's not all the members have been decided on, is that correct?
yeah,
All right,
but nothing yet.
all right. New business. I also sent an email to all of you because we have to do our annual ethics, open meeting law, and conflict of interest review. So you guys get to all read that again and send it into the Andy Dowd, the town clerk, that you've read all that information. So we're all in.
Norm, I did that in December, so I assume that's okay.
I have no idea.
I'll resend it to Andy. It's supposed to be good for a year, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the year cycle is.
If it's calendar year.
It might be a calendar year. So. I don't know what to guide you with, Bob.
Okay, I'll ask.
And no mail. And is the next meeting date of February 17th, our regular third Wednesday of the month? Is that, anybody have a problem with that?
Nothing. Yeah.
It's okay.
Is it-
February, what date, Norm? Sorry.
It's February 17th, third Wednesday. Anybody have anything that we should address this evening? You've been quiet, Julianne.
I have been quiet, but I do have a little bit of a question. And it goes back to the demolition. Do you think anything in that building is salvageable or desirable? And what would they, I mean, some of that wood looked pretty interesting.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot to mention. We have a list of companies that salvage old wood, and I will send that to the developers so that they know that might be an option. Yeah, I have a list probably of 10 companies that go in and purchase old timbers from old buildings.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
No problem.
All right, we can keep on, or if somebody wants to call a meeting to the end, we can do that too.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
Brian Smith seconded. All right, we'll do the roll call. Bruce.
Aye.
Brian Swanson.
Aye.
Brian Smith.
Aye.
Millie.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Mike. You're muted. Give me a thumbs up or something.
Sorry, yes.
I say yes. It's good seeing you all. We'll see you in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.